mess that up. All right, so I think I'm going to try doing this type of forum. I'm writing every day. I'm trying to sort of consolidate those ideas that are in the writing into articles, which is not always happening. I'm in Lourdes. It's July 25th. I've been gone since June 6th, and I've been in Lourdes for a couple of weeks. And I'm at a point where I am running out of a bit of steam. It's either that I'm running out of steam or I am on the second half of this trip, but I'm well into the second half of this trip, and I'm trying to sift through what I already have without having to add so much more, because I have a lot to think about, obviously. So I'm at a point. Oh, and also it's a heat wave. It was 99 degrees with 40% humidity. I think it was supposed to be 400% humidity the other day. And I'm on the third floor in a little pensione, and it's really, really fucking hot. So I think I'm just in human mode at the time. But I did want to get some of these ideas down. I've done some free writing about it, but you know, if anyone is to watch this, including myself, maybe it'll generate some other ideas. So the original sort of premise for this trip, writ large, and a really like amorphic, possibility-rich kind of frame, was I was thinking about how processes can work. And with my background of thinking about textiles and how the process of making something imbues all of its meaning, imbues intention, can imbue power, sacred power, familial power, through inheritance, symbology, all this kind of stuff. And how then the product at the end, what that product then says because of that process. So I was thinking of that in regard to folk costume and clothing, really interested in drag and festival. But there is a whole other aspect to that about really focusing on the idea of process and what that means for identity. So in regard to France, I was interested in looking at how raw processes of the land, or raw objects of the land, or raw materials of the land get processed, and through that process, how they gain meaning, and when they become a product through that process, or an object, how that object then indexes the idea of it being from France exclusively. So how does an object or a piece of land or something like that, who really doesn't have a national identity or a cultural identity because it is not a human subject, right? How does it, through the process of coming into human hand and being interpreted, then essentially gain culture and gain identity for the people who are using it, and also for international audiences who would then read the object as coming from like a special locality. So sort of a typical idea of this is like terroir, which is like, pardon my French, is the different qualities associated with wine, and like the specificity of the locality of where it came from and the intention of how it was made in this whole world. And it's a big concept in regard to like the slow food movement. So I thought, this kind of frame works with a lot of different things, and it works for things that aren't comestibles. It works with things that we don't eat. So I was really interested in working with textiles and how this process might work with textiles. And so I was interested in working with the slow fiber movement and their tours that they do in northern France, and actually southern France as well, and Michel Garcia, who's a Provençal dye technician who works with historic dyes. And then I was interested in how this worked in the idea of containing the sacred, or the processes of like containment with the water in Lourdes. There's going to be like a little cross conversation between those two things to see if there's any kind of similarities, or seeing if this is, even two little like theoretical experiments to see how this would work. So everything with the slow fiber movement has fallen through, and I have been on just a totally wide open investigation, moment of curiosity with textiles here then, just bringing them up in conversation and going to as many museums as I can. I've really met some fascinating ideas that I'm excited to look at in this the last 10 days of this trip. But in Lourdes, the idea of this process has come to this like kind of, in my mind, interesting theme, which is containment. So it's not only like how do you take this raw material and contain it in things like the water bottles that are here that are shaped like the Immaculate Conception, or within your hand and then in your body even. But there's like a big narrative about like these ways that we're trying to like parameterize that which cannot even be articulated. Meaning, how do you contain the sacred? So something like the water, it's gone through a huge process of how it's accessible for people, just in general. The different like ways that people are toured and guided through the grotto. That isn't like an open experience. You have to go through a queue. The area where you have water fountains that have slow water so that you can bathe your face, and then you also have areas that have faster water where you can fill up. I have a confidant here that I started speaking with who's from Lourdes, and her father used to work for the sanctuary, and he has shared some ideas about mixing of the water of municipal waters, which is then to say, is it less holy? No, perhaps it's just that the water itself then charges the municipal water. And then there's a whole culture of reliquaries here and of other objects that are then housing the Immaculate Conception, which was the vision that St. Bernadette had over a period of, I think, 14 days, with this sacred apparition that spoke to her and asked her to basically to petition to have the church built. So there's like a wonderful world of symbolic materiality about what this means to people. You also see it on garments. You see, on kitschy scarves, you're seeing her face and the Immaculate Conception's image and St. Bernadette's image, which itself is kind of a question, perhaps a little problematic for her. She might have thought so. And so there's a kind of cool idea about like, how are you containing something which can't be described? There's a lovely sort of historical moment or anecdote with St. Bernadette when she was going through the process of sharing these visions. And of course, at the onset, people didn't believe her. She came from a very poor family. She didn't have a lot of social prestige to, gain any kind of attention. And then she started garnering, for whatever reason, politically, spiritually, legitimately, whatever you want to say. And the church essentially started to foster and legitimize what she's experiencing. And so they followed what the Immaculate Conception requested, which was to make the church down there, the original one, the original crypt. And for that whole process, they petitioned an artist from France to make a sculpture and of the Immaculate Conception. And the way that Bernadette had described her, she was beautiful. She was sort of a shimmering white. She had this blue girdle, like this blue belt on, which is like the symbolic marker of the Immaculate Conception here, because the face always changes, right, in renditions of different artists. And so this very well-known, prestigious artist of renown in Paris made the sculpture of the Immaculate Conception to be presented here. And when they brought it to her, she recognized its beauty, and she accepted it as an object to represent her, but she said that that's not her. So I've really been musing about this idea of something that you encounter with your internal eyes, or something you encounter noetically, something that you encounter through spirit, something you encounter through other senses aside from eyesight, or again, eyesight for inward out, vision inward out. It's a beautiful and perhaps futile and perhaps the most excellent attempted homage to put something like that into form. So that's quite alive here. And it's fascinating to see so many different manifestations and things like, glow-in-the-dark plastic Madonnas to the extraordinary beauty of this church, to people's own religious metals to, you know, symbolic things that are so private that I can't read them. So that's where I am with that. And just wanted to share it, give this YouTube a little whirl, and there'll be more later, I'm sure.